to the Looney Tune world of Fortran, everyone's least favorite site as well. Okay, so Fortran has gotten more and more ridiculous as time goes on, and this is even more proof of that as well. Proof that exclusives don't sell consoles. Um, Nintendo consoles are basically built off of exclusives. Also, the Super Nintendo and the NES, that was when gaming was in its infancy and not what it is today. Okay, NES was the best selling console of that generation. Super Nintendo Entertainment System, I think, I don't know if, actually, I think Sega Genesis eventually won with, copies being sold in Brazil, which, yes, the Sega Genesis is one of the best selling consoles in Brazil because for a while there, they didn't have the normal consoles that we did, like the PS4, the Xbox One, the Switch One as well. But the DS sold very well. The DS had tons and tons of exclusives. Also, even when VG starts, before VG starts, stopped, existing. The DS, a lot of the best selling DS games were exclusives. Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, Nintendogs, Mario Kart DS, and the same thing the Switch One as well. Okay, almost all the best-selling games for the Switch One, besides I think Minecraft and Fortnite, are all exclusive for the Switch. Okay, or are exclusive to Nintendo consoles like Mario Kart 8, obviously, but games like New Horizons as well sold very well. That was only on the Switch and now Switch 2 because you can get it on the Switch 2 eShop, but many Switch 1 games can be played on the Switch 2 and the Switch 2 as well, but that's mostly because there was something called backwards compatibility. But the Switch, they were saying that proof that exclusives don't sell consoles. The Wii had tons of exclusives. Game Boy Advance had tons of exclusives. 3DS almost ran entirely on exclusives because the 3DS was a very difficult console to develop for. Okay, almost every Nintendo console ran on exclusives, and the main reason why the N64 and GameCube and Wii U failed is not because of exclusives. It was the N64 was because it was very expensive, okay, to get an N64, so mostly upper class people could really get an N64 as well. The GameCube failed because PS2. And the Wii U failed, from which we discussed many reasons on this channel why the Wii U failed. It was because Nintendo couldn't advertise the Wii U properly as well, and couldn't distinguish normies. Hey, the Wii U is not a Wii, it's a separate console. And that's why the Nintendo Switch 2, which is technically Nintendo's worst selling console, but the Switch 2 is only a couple months old. Of course, it's naturally going to be Nintendo's worst selling console for a little bit, until it passes the Wii U inevitably, and then probably the GameCube, N64, SNES, NES, 3DS, Game Boy Advance. As well, although this number is very outdated, the Switch is actually near the Switch, more near the DS, and of course, this does not include the Wii U as well here. And I think almost all Nintendo's consoles, I think with the exception of the GameCube and the Wii U, and of course the Virtual Boy, were all very successful consoles. The N64 came out when gaming, started to explode. And the reason the PS1 did better is because the PS1 was way cheaper, as the PS1 used discs, which at the time was cheaper than cartridges as well. And that's what this video here. Goodbye.